Hi, everybody. Hope you're all well and good. Welcome to another VT podcast. We couldn't call this actually a podcast. This is our first ever kind of episode that we're doing today on different things apart from just our normal pre-match kind of podcast that we do. We've got my right-hand man today, Shibi. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks. How you doing?
I'm good. Our special guest today is a really special guest. I've been trying to get hold of this person for a long time, but he's a very busy man. Chaudhuri, how are you, bro?
Thanks, Nish. Thanks, Shibi. Hi, guys. Great to be here, and look forward to our chat.
So today, guys, it's all about Indian football and how the football has developed in India and what is it like now. And how has the pandemic actually affected it? And there's no better person than our guest today who's got, I'm sure, is it over 21 years experience in football media within India? Is that right?
Yeah, 20. It's more 22, 23 now. Getting older. But it's quite a bit.
Excellent. And just tell us a bit about yourself. How did you get involved in this? And, was it something that you just kind of happened? Because obviously you're the founder of IndianFootball.com, right?
Yes.
Excellent.
So that was my sort of entry into Indian football. April 1998. I had an idea. I was looking at things, and then I realized I'm trying to track Indian football online. I have to say I'm born and brought up in Germany. Spent 5 years of my schooling in Kolkata. So that's my link to India. That's where my love for Indian football comes from. And it started in 1998. It was more of a media thingy, online journalism, which I did for a while. At some stage, the German league came to me, Bayern Munich came to me and said, "Hey, listen, can you help with our stuff in India?" Then did more stuff for radio, for television here in Germany, but also in India. And I've been more of a consultant as a strategic advisor in regard to football development, not only in India but around the world for different projects. And that's been keeping me busy.
Oh, that's excellent. And I mean, Indian football, we've heard a lot about it, and we have seen some great players go over there from the UK to play over there. Is that right, Shibi? We can name a few at the moment. Anelka. I think there was a few from Chelsea.
I signed him. I was at Mumbai City at the time in the first season, and Nicholas Anelka as well as Freddie Ljungberg were two of my signings from the Premier League. It was quite crazy, to look at fan culture. Is that when Nicholas Anelka arrived, you had the Arsenal and Chelsea fan groups in Mumbai coming together and welcoming him like one, which is like unthinkable of in London. So there were some crazy things that we saw in those days, and it's an interesting one that who all has sort of come to play in India and has been successful or has helped in the growth of the game in India.
Yes, I mean, when you've had a signing like Anelka, how did the fans react to that the day he actually signed and arrived?
So we didn't announce when he's going to arrive.
Okay.
They knew they were at Mumbai airport to welcome Nicholas Anelka.
Right.
And, Nicholas Anelka, a lot of people told me a lot of things, how he is, what he is. And, I can only say, just love the guy. He's a character. He has his own opinions, but he's a pro. When he wants to be on that football field, he wants to, showcase how good he really is. And that is, for me, I think the biggest thing when it comes to Nicholas Anelka, or even learning, playing and working with the stars that came over to India and to play in that league. But I have a counter question for you guys.
Yeah.
Do you know that someone from India nearly signed for Aston Villa once?
Oh, well, I'm going to be honest. The only sort of when I think of elite Indian players, you saw it's got to be Sunil Chetri, isn't it?
But, no, it was pre Sunil Chetri's time. It's the year 1999. A certain Baichung Bhutia had a few days at Villa. They looked at him, and then he went on trial with Fulham, and then with Bury, and then Bury Football Club in the end signed him. So Villa were looking at him. Again, I think the jump would have been too big to then an established Premier League club. But Villa nearly signed the then India captain.
Yeah, I have to give some credit to Nilesh because he did mention before we sort of came on today. But like I said, I mean, just going back to, we mentioned Anelka there in particular. And, we look at Nicolas Anelka, somebody like you've mentioned, he's been at some big clubs, Arsenal, Liverpool, etc. Of course, French international. What do you think that done for something like Indian football in general, do you think? Because we know the profile of Indian football is always growing, isn't it? But initially, I suppose when the likes of Anelka, we spoke about people like Fowler before we came on, etc. What do you think that done for the Indian leagues in general, do you think, or football as in a general?
I think if I look at our Mumbai City dressing room in the year 2014, when we had the first season, the boys at the beginning were overawed because, again, Anelka, Ljungberg. I signed a guy called Manuel Friedrich from Borussia Dortmund as well, who just 6 months earlier, took it's the wrong way to say it, took Cristiano Ronaldo apart, but rather Cristiano Ronaldo was not as effective for Real Madrid against Borussia Dortmund. So we did have three big name players in our team and the dressing room. And that is something that a lot of these Indian boys could learn really a lot of things and realize also that these guys are human beings. These guys are football players like them. And I think that those were the learnings. And if you see that now, we are, the Indian Super League is now in season 7, that it has helped in development, but you can't switch it in the short term. It will take a generation or two, most probably, for Indian football to really develop and really grow. But still, again, it's just that I love those days, and it was quite challenging, to be very honest, because we started the club from scratch and didn't have actually anything at the start. But to work with these guys, we had Peter Reid as a manager, who's of course a legend in Everton. Has coached some big clubs as well, it was, sadly we weren't as successful as I would have liked us to be, but it was still a very, very great experience.
I think what I've liked about the Indian football and there have been names that have gone over there, and it's the experience that has helped the Indian players over there, and the likes of Peter Reid going over there with the wealth of experience that he's got, and the likes of Anelka going over there, and that can only help Indian football, right? That them sort of marquee signings,
it always helps. I mean, if you've got quality players, you learn a lot of things. You learn about things like diet, training, physical fitness. If I look at 2014, if I look at now, not only just at Mumbai City or across India or even around the world, there's a massive development when it comes to the area of physical fitness. You look at the area of nutrition, a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have been adopted. It's not like, I remember in 2000 we came with India to play against Fulham and against West Brom down the road from you guys.
Yeah.
No, sorry, we played West Brom, and then we played Bangladesh and Leicester.
I actually went to the West Brom game.
And the atmosphere was brilliant. The Indian atmosphere was really brilliant. But I felt some of the players literally went to the pub, had a beer. Pre-season, okay, there's someone, India's coming, let's go play and let's see what happens. You can't do that anymore. So, it's, this sort of romantic feeling about how football used to be has changed really, and it's become very, very professional, very, very organized. And I guess, the standard might not be as high in India, but I guess from the organization, from the structure, it can be said to be similar to the leagues in Europe. And
like you mentioned, there's sort of professionalism of players in terms of how they train, etc., build up to games, how they look after themselves. Like you mentioned, all that's developed. But just going back to what we were talking about earlier very quickly, you mentioned when you started up the club, just going to that fans perspective. I mean, because we know in India, of course, everybody lives and breathes cricket, don't they? So how do you initially get, I suppose, the fans to even take an interest into football or engage actively, if you like?
So the first main thing to always say is that football in India is the number 2 sport. Yeah. So that's the first very, very important information. But you have to remember that cricket seems to be 1 to 10, and then number 11 is football. Yeah. But football is, again, number 11, 12, 13. So football is quite big and quite massive. So what we did in Mumbai, for example, is, or we didn't actually have to do it. It happened automatically with the fans. You had a number of Mumbai has a number of fan clubs of the biggest teams in Europe. And it was actually coming together of the big 5, 6 from the Premier League, the big two from Spain. You've got fans from AC Milan, from Bayern Munich.
Mm-hmm.
they all joined in and made one big fan club, which was Mumbai City Supporters Club. There were 400 guys standing in the stands trying to be European style with cheering, with chanting and everything, which was brilliant. Which again, one of the things that we've seen in the last 7 years is fan culture develop, and that's one of the upsides I would say is that's happened to football in India, that has happened, that there is there's a connect with the city, with its fans, and not just sort of supporting clubs abroad, and that's, I think, one of the things. It'll need much more, and there needs to be much more growth, but again, steps are being taken, and that's good to see.
To be honest, you know what? When you've just spoke about fans there and how it is in India and stuff, that is music to our ear, mine and Shibi's ears at the moment, because what we do for Villans Together is, we try and get people from all backgrounds to attend Villa Park. We try and work on diversity and inclusion. So, it's very interesting to hear what the fan culture is like in India, and how it's progressed as such. Is there, obviously we're a fans group here, and we try and do what we try and do. Are there similar fan groups in India in terms of trying to get other people to games as well, other people from backgrounds, and trying to get their interest as well from different cultures of India?
So you have to differentiate. Like that? Yes. But I sometimes would say you have to differentiate between the clubs and between the fan groups and as such. You have the traditional fans of clubs like Mohun Bagan, East Bengal, Mohammedan Sporting in Calcutta, who are amongst the oldest club in Mohun Bagan is the oldest club in Asia. With East Bengal, they've got a 100-year-old rivalry because East Bengal turned 100 last year. And you support in Calcutta a club by birth. You're born either as a Bengali from West Bengal, then you're a Mohun Bagan supporter. If you are sort of a former refugee from East Bengal, which is now Bangladesh, and have come over, then you support East Bengal. If you're a Muslim, you support Mohammedan Sporting. It is sort of taking the Glasgow Derby to a next level. So that's one part of it. But even also in these traditional clubs, there are new age fan groups who've developed, who've evolved, and that's one. Then you have, of course, the new teams have formed. Because of the ISL being formed in 2014. But you've got one team, Bengaluru FC, who played in the I League and then shifted to the ISL. They've got very strong fan groups like the West Block Blues. And in a lot of things similar. And West Block Blues, for example, have been trying to get people in Bangalore interested in the sport, trying to get women to come to football games. So I would say to some extent their efforts have been similar to what you guys are doing back in the UK. Yeah,
I mean, you talk about the women's in sport. I mean, a lot of people won't know, but there is a women's league now in India.
Yes.
Is it just the one league at the moment? Is that right? Was it?
No, there's one national league.
Yeah.
You have, as with the men's game, you've got tons of regional leagues or state leagues, city leagues, which have been running for quite a while. But again, that India is so big, it's they call it a subcontinent, not a country per se. So sometimes it's really too big to really try to put that puzzle together, and that's what they're trying to do. And it's not easy at all. But again, they're trying and trying to do the best.
Well, that's really good, and it's good to see, like you were saying before, that although the standard may not be there, but the structure is 100% there in terms of what you've got now, and it's the two leagues now which are very much a popular league now around the world, which is really good to see. We could touch a bit on the actual the national team, I suppose, how far they've come and how they progressing in the actual game. Obviously, you've got the captain, which is well known, which is Sunil, and he, from what I know, he did have a trial at Coventry, which didn't materialise. But then he signed for QPR, and it was a 3-year contract, 3-year deal, and then he didn't get his work permit. Is that right?
Yes. So that's the difference between Baichung Bhutia and Sunil Chhetri. Baichung got, with the help of a certain Keith Vass, his work permit to play at Bury. QPR, through the Mittal family, were trying to get him a work permit. of course, we're trying to push, of course, also the Asian agenda in British football, but that was not possible, and that's why he didn't get a work permit. He's also had with another player called JJ had a trial at Glasgow Rangers, and then spent some time in the US with Kansas City, and also then with Sporting Lisbon B, where amongst others Eric Dyer was one of his teammates.
Oh wow! But he's a popular figure, and if that had materialised, that QPR deal, that it may have been a game changer in English football, right? Should be.
Yeah, I mean, for anybody who follows I suppose you do even have to follow Indian football to know of Sunil Chetri. He's quite a household name, isn't he? And I think his career speaks for itself. I think it's about 70 odd international goals he has. So I mean, he's a good player, like you said. Had he sort of come over to England and got that work permit, who knows? It could have opened a bit of a door, if you like, for other young Indian players coming through. Because, like I said, just coming back to the start of today's topic, just having them inspirations, them people to look up to guide you, etc. So, who knows? In saying that, over here in England, like Arun, you're probably aware, not a big breakout of Asian football is in this sort of industry. I mean, we've got Arjun Raiki, who's coming through at the moment, who you've probably heard of recently more. But again, just going back to your initial question, it is a shame initially, because QPR, like I said, a big club, and it would have been a brilliant platform for Sunil, so it is a shame that never happened.
No, it's great. But I mean, he's a great player, and hope to see him play some more soon. How's the pandemic affected football in India as a whole? Has it affected you guys in a big way in terms of, has it stopped the progression and the development of the game?
I think the biggest problem is that at youth level, and also mostly in the women's game, even training is not possible very often. I think that's a big problem. So the youth leagues will not happen. Some of the state leagues are not happening. You have the Indian Super League as well as the I-League happening as bubbles. So you are in a sort of 5-month bubble of where you have to sort of stay in and be part of a group and get your matches done in a much shorter duration. So they're trying to get it through. Let's see if in March the pending World Cup qualifiers happen. So those matches for the national team were cancelled. Our national team coach Igor Stimac at the moment is still in Croatia. So let's see if he's able to travel. So there's a lot of ifs and buts at the moment with the international calendar, given the situation there is. But at the moment, it looks like the pandemic is much less in India than it is here in Europe. So that's sort of a positive. But again, sports is affected as any other part of life as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's been quite affected us quite big here, but we hope things can get back to normal very, very soon in the sport there. So, and hope that Indian football can progress again and beat that as well. But I think, Shibi, did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about as well?
Yeah, I had a couple of, again, we'll just go slightly off topic then, if you like. Just a couple of questions to get your opinions, if you like. So first of all, then, I just wanted to ask you, you mentioned that you've had quite a career, like you mentioned, spanning across the previous 23 years, in fact, and long may it continue as well, Arun. But who would you say that, in terms of, I mean, you've mentioned that you've actually signed players as well. So, I mean, in terms of players you've either signed, players you've come across, or perhaps covered in certain, websites, etc., who would you say is the biggest footballer or icon perhaps you may have interviewed or covered, etc., or signed perhaps as well? And it's quite a broad question. It is quite a broad question because I'm sure you've covered many. But if you had to pick one, who would you say it would be?
So I've also worked for Bayern Munich, so I've dealt with quite a few players in that team. It's for me one of the biggest legends that I've dealt with, and it was quite heartening, but it's a sad story in the end as well. Is former Bayern Munich striker Gerd Müller, who's one of the best ever. Yeah, never is rated amongst the top. I don't understand with this, 68 goals in 62 matches for Germany. 365 goals in the Bundesliga, 40 goals a season. Those records are top. And I met him for the first time in 2005 as part of Bayern Munich's B team. And he recently had his 75th birthday, and the club created a booklet for him with pictures and an album, and he sadly has Alzheimer, and I one of our photos was in it, and a short text. So that was most probably one of the biggest. I've met quite a few of the German legends over the years, or because for me the Indian boys, they're more like friends. They're not someone that that is a star or something. But even dealing with an Anelka, was and Freddie. I mean, it was quite funny that I've met Freddie a couple of times when I visited Arsenal, and he shouted my name across the club premises, and people thought, who is this guy? Why is Freddie Ljungberg shouting his name? So that they've had my funny stories in football and great ones, and I would say yes. If I had to pick one, most probably Gerd Müller would be the one, because I knew him a little bit and know what a simple guy he was, and he was never after fame or anything. But again, I think his records speak for himself, and he should normally be up there with a Pelé or with a Maradona. But for whatever reasons, he's not.
Yeah, that's a good story. I like that.
And last but not least, we don't want to take too much of your time up, but for any of the sort of young villains watching us on the podcast, or well, not certainly a podcast, but interview, if you like, or video that will pop up later. Any advice for any sort of young people who perhaps want to go into journalism, cover sports, perhaps? Any bit of advice you think that could be useful, perhaps?
I will always say is that have a passion for the sport. I think that we three are having a chat about it shows that we have a passion for the game. I think that is a key element. And then realize what suits you. Do you want to do something which is more writing, start a blog, or something of that sort? Do you like to do podcast, a video blog, a video podcast? Do you want to do stuff on social media? Try and find your niche where you're good. Where you are competent enough, where you can get something done, because otherwise I feel in today's world it's going to be very challenging, because I think also the media landscape is changing, and especially the media landscape, or just not the landscape, but I think generally a lot of things have moved towards digital because of the pandemic, and I think that we are in changing times. So those would be my small bits of advice to people.
Yeah, good advice, absolutely.
Just quickly, Villa have got fans all over the world. We've got a fans group in Ghana, which are massive, and they've got a massive passion for supporting Villa. I'm going to ask you, actually, is there a fan group for Villa in India? And if there isn't, we need to start one up.
I have met Aston Villa fans in Mumbai.
You have,
but I don't know if they have a fan club. I know that there are some crazy ones, because I once went to Bangalore for a Premier League weekend experience where all the clubs were present, and there were really fans, even from a Newcastle, your rivals, West Brom. Someone was a Brighton fan, and and I've met, was it 2 or 3 guys? It was a few years ago. 2 or 3 guys who were supporting Aston Villa, and talking about Villa Park and things. And so you do have fans, and I think you've gained some fans this season with certain results and matches, and with Jack Grealish playing the way he is. I see the jersey in the background. And I think he's got some few fans, and I think the season has done you most probably very good, and also to have a young Indian origin boy now in the under-23s does also help. I mean, playing against Liverpool could be worse.
Yeah, he had a magical night, didn't he? Shibi. He really did take the hearts of a lot of Asian fans, Asian footballers, and he's really caught the eye in terms of what they can do now, and they have a bit of an inspiration from him, and it's really good. Arjun's really stepped up there, hasn't he?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you look at that team. I read a crazy stat where the last time we fielded 11 debutants was when the club was formed back in 1874.
Yeah.
So it was a brilliant night for everyone. But credit to Arjun, for anybody who watches the reserves or sort of the under-18s. He's in fact quite a pivotal player for that team. He scored a cracker against Chelsea from about 40 yards out a couple of weeks ago. But, brilliant player. Fingers crossed, we sort of nurture him in the right way, get him sort of involved. And who knows, we could have a player on our hands there. Fingers crossed.
Definitely. Well, Arun, thank you very much for taking your time out and speaking to us today. It's been a pleasure and really loved hearing your stories and loved hearing about how India have progressed in football and what the fan culture is like there. It's been amazing. But yeah, we'd like to thank the Fans for Diversity for their support, Luke Roper for their support, and the Villa Foundation, of course, for their continuous support. Thank you, Shibi.
Thank you very much.
We take care. We'll play tomorrow against West Ham, guys. So up the Villa. Thank you all. Take care.
All the best.